Hi guys, I'm Paul Frothy Thompson. I'm the one who was rescued from Arapiles the other day. There's been a few sort of comments asking for a bit of an explanation, like a post-incident sort of summary of what happened. So I kind of can't really type at the moment easily, so it's probably easier if I just do this. I hope I'm easy enough to understand because my lips are all stitched up at the moment. My teeth went through my lips. So it's a little bit tricky to talk. So I just want to preface this by saying, like, I like to think of myself as pretty safe. Like, I definitely keep safety to heart. I think I'm a pretty experienced climber. I've been climbing for about 17 years. I've done more than 4,500 different climbs all around the world, including high altitude. That's not to boast, just I guess more to sort of say that it's not like this came about from inexperience, but perhaps at some level comes about from overconfidence or maybe arrogance. Um, so where the accident happened, which was Ali's chains, I've been up and down them many times this same trip. We've been doing a lot of climbs on the upper portion of the bluffs, and I've been up and down there many times in the past as well. So, perhaps at some level it starts to become a little bit mundane, which is, when you look at how it turned out for me, that's obviously a rather stupid and short-sighted way of looking at the situation. But perhaps that's how I was treating it at the time. Um, there are obviously where I fell off a chain. If you've got a big enough carabiner, you can clip over the chain, or you could choose to sling the chain. Or you could actually choose to clip through the individual like chain links as well. Obviously, that's a bit more fiddly. So personally, I didn't have a beanie that fits over the chain. I chose, for the sake of efficiency, not to clip into the chain itself, and perhaps for the sake of maybe laziness or what I perceived as a cost to risk um, analysis, I chose not to sling the chains because obviously it's a bit more fiddly to do. So on the day in question, we were just going up the chains mostly to retrieve some gear because we were leaving the following day, and perhaps that too leads to a little bit of complacency. The trip's kind of over. It's been a great trip. I'm going up here to perform what I think of as a fairly, banal task, just get some gear back. So I was scrambling up. I got to, there's sort of 3 links of chain near the roof at the top, which you use to get out from under the roof and up into the gully where it gets quite easy. I was moving between the second and the third chain. And the chains were damp from morning frost. I won't call them wet. They were damp. It had been the frostiest day we had for a while. And I did notice that from the first chains. As I sort of flicked my foot out left, just to sort of get the foot onto a ledge, as I sort of moved onto the third chain, my foot missed the ledge, or maybe just caught the edge of it. I sort of slid back a bit on the second chain, but to be honest, didn't think that much of it because as long as I hold the chain, I can't go anywhere. And from a climber's perspective, a chain like that is, you imagine you can't fall off it. Obviously, that's not the case because somehow I slipped off the chain, just dropped. At first, I sort of looked down. There was a very small sort of a foot ledge, you might say. I tried to aim for that as I was falling. I thought I'd better land on it, and I did. And I remember thinking, hey, I've landed on the ledge. Sweet, I've got it. And then suddenly I was falling again. My theory is because I had my backpack on, I had an 80-meter rope and a double rack of trad gear in it, maybe, 20 odd kilograms, that perhaps as the momentum of it falling caught up with me, it kind of pulled me off a position I thought I'd made. So obviously at that point, I'm now tumbling and I'm falling a long way. So the next drop would have been maybe, 8-ish meters, something like that. Maybe, maybe 10, I'm not sure. And as I was sort of, at this point I knew, this wasn't just a little fall, now it's a big one. And I fell past like literally 4 people who were around me on the route at the time. I remember as I'm falling, just thinking, this isn't a survivable fall. I've assisted as just a climber enough climbing related accidents that have happened around Australia that, when you look at the mechanism and the distances and just the landing zone, which is very rocky, very uneven, like you just know that in most cases, especially because I didn't have a helmet on, that's a fact. It was on my pack because I guess at that point, my perspective was that we weren't climbing so much as scrambling. We were essentially on our way to the climb. And I fully appreciate that is a rather like silly way of looking at it. But that's what I did. And yes, as I fell, I'm like, this is not a survivable fall. So as I was sort of flying to the ground, I made a choice to let myself ragdoll when I hit the ground, rather than trying to fight the landing, because I just imagine like, a spring hitting the ground, like all the force goes through your body, versus if you just sort of go with it, maybe it can be distributed over a larger surface area. So I hit the ground and I kind of bounced down the gully, and came to a stop with my upper half sort of hanging over another drop of, I'm told, about 12 meters. In some of the photos you might have seen where I'm sort of hanging upside down and my friends are trying to keep my body upright. The reason they're doing that is because from where I was hanging, all the blood coming out of my face and nose was just running straight into my mouth and I couldn't breathe. So those guys, they got on a rope and they were basically holding my upper half upwards by positioning themselves across the void so I could breathe, really. Like somewhat literally keeping me from drowning. And obviously, from there, the rest of it perhaps is kind of obvious. I got very lucky in so many ways. First of all, that I had my friends with me. Secondly, that perhaps because of the ragdoll, maybe just pure probability, most of my injuries are not that terrible. I'm pretty sure the facial lacerations and probably a lot of the less traumatic injuries were just from me bouncing down the gully after I've already hit the ground. We got very lucky that, above us, Paul Rogers, very experienced, like climber and guide, and his climbing partner, Yvette, like an off-duty nurse that, they already had a rope in position because they were climbing, they were pitching out alleys, which then meant that my friends could use that to get down to me safely rather than having to set up a whole rope system. And obviously Yvette, as an off-duty nurse, could provide a lot of immediate first aid and first aid advice as well to my friends. And I guess could also give correct information about my condition up to Paul, who at the time was on the phone to the emergency services. And then later on when the emergency service did rock up, I think, I'm not 100%, you might have to tell me, Yvette, I think you were the first one to actually put a cannula in my arm, which that's kind of cool. Because I remember it went in very smoothly and that I don't think I'd had much painkillers at that point. So you must be very good at it. You must be a very good nurse. But then, from there, obviously, the Arapiles mountain rescue guys showed up first, which, because I know some of them, it was, great to have the familiar, skilled friends there ready to go. And then obviously all the rest of the authorities, the ambulance were next, somewhere in there, police showed up. Obviously the SES, my dad's in the Blue Mountains SES, he's a vertical rescue operator. He actually runs their vertical rescue group. So again, see the SES is like almost like an extended family, just having grown up around them. And then the AMBO guys as well. And then just, the amazing amount of people who came to stretching me down to the ambulance. It did not sound like an easy task. I couldn't see at that point because of mostly because of the blood in my eyes, but it sounded like hard work. A few grunts and groans. As I was going by, I did my best to try and thank you guys, because I was so overwhelmed with just the gratitude of what you guys were doing for me, that it was very emotional, if I'm honest. So I was just trying to thank all of you, quite like just as much as I possibly could, with a view to conveying like just how overwhelming gratitude I was. And I hope you guys all know that, that even now it's still very touching. It's one of the few times I get emotional is when I think about like just everyone coming together, for me, of all people, it's just, wow, that's so cool. Anyway, sorry for rambling, but that's like basically the event in a nutshell. As much as I know, feel free, if some of you guys have some corrections to what I said, feel free to correct me. Obviously my perspective was both very subjective and, after the accident, a very limited sort of scope of what I could perceive, and who knows, may have been adulterated by some of the medication I was given, but that's what I understand the event to be. When I think about the mechanism, maybe not taking it seriously enough on the back of having been up and down there so many times, and that from the climber's perspective, difficulty wise, it's not really considered much of a climb, and it's arrogant to say that. And a final bit of kind of like delicious foreshadowing, perhaps. On the walk up that very morning, my climbing partners and I have been having a discussion about the fact that none of us had ever had an epic in all of our years of climbing. And that discussion stopped probably 3 minutes before I fell off. So the word hubris springs to mind when I think of that turn of events. Anyway, thank you guys so much, and hope I didn't put you to sleep.